Hey everyone, John with Indy Marine and Auto Body. Welcome to Project Steelhorse. In this series of videos, we're going to show you how we restored this car and convert it to a fastback. As many of you guys out there, you want a fastback, but you don't want to pay the price. You know, you might be looking into doing a conversion yourself. You may want to watch the video. And for anyone else, even if you have a coupe, you don't want to convert it into a fastback. We're also going to cover the whole restoration in this video, or series of videos. But anyway, here's our project. It started out, it's a $1,000 coupe that we bought a few years back, and my son wanted to restore it. So we first started with the idea that we're going to keep it as a coupe, and then once we started looking at the condition of the car, seeing all the damage that was done by the rust, and stuff that we're going to replace, we decided real quick that if we're going to have to do this much work, let's convert it into a fastback like what we wanted to start with. So, you know, if you're out there and you're looking at converting your coupe, really assess your coupe. You know, how rough is it? How solid is it? You know, there's two different ways you can go about doing a conversion. And we've got video series covering each way. One is you buy the conversion kit with all brand new sheet metal from Dynacorn, or you buy your used drift line. We're not going to cover this video for Project Steelhorse. We are going to use the conversion kit. We have another project that we've called Injected 390. That will be the conversion using a used donor roof. So you can look those videos up as well, and you can see both ways on how you can do the conversion. So after we did the assessment, it was time to start tearing it down. This was a project my son wanted to do with me, and you know, anytime you can work with your kids, nephew, or teach the younger generation about cars, it's a win-win for both. So with the engine, transmission, front suspension all removed, we started with the aprons and the upper frame rails. As you can see, common rust where the overlap is from the shock tower to the front and rear apron. So we got all that cut out, got it re-welded up, got it ground down to metal. At this point, you know, we kind of left the shock tower because we're not real sure what suspension we're going to use on the front. Permanently. So at this point, didn't do a whole lot with the shock towers, just kind of left them there till we decide what direction the build's going to take. So here's the left side, the upper frame rail or apron sections. As you can see, I did this in two pieces. I kept the same overlap that the factory did. Went ahead and cut out the rusted out sections up on the front apron. It goes into the shock tower overlap. Cut all the rest out of that. And then what I did was butt welded instead of overlapping it with metal. I just cut the patch to exactly fit the cutout. And that way I don't have any lap at all. And I just went ahead and MIG welded that solid in there. And then, as you can see, here's my patch for the front. And I just did the same thing. I don't have any overlap. I'll go ahead and just do a solid weld around the outside of the patch. And then do the 5 welds, holding the overlap together. And then I even have the nice bent edge that once I got the patch welded in, I just went ahead and trimmed that edge so it matched the factory bend. So here we are moving along to cutting the front core support out, grinding down the spot welds left over from that. And as you can see, you know, I got my son Paxton. Gotta love kids, man. Slave labor, that's where it's at. You guys do all the shit work. Dad will do all the other work. You can do the shit work. As we know, it gets really pretty messy. But here he is. He got the core support cut out. Went ahead and, as you can see, the front frame rails behind where the bumper brackets were just totally gone. So the whole frame rail was not rusted out. You can see the actual nuts are still in the frame rail. Got the one in the left front, it twisted off. The one in the back actually came out, but it was just really gone right there. So I thought, well, looked online, found some nice patch panels for him. Cheap enough. Thought, we can go ahead and grab that, get those put in there, repair the front frame rail. So that's what he's prepping for right now. As you know, everything's a lot of prep, a lot of work. I don't know. I think it took Paxton maybe not that long, maybe like just 40 minutes getting the front core support out. Of course, he's learning too. So, I definitely wanted my son to have hands-on experience. Dad's not going to build him the car, and he doesn't want me to do it all. He wants to learn. He wants to be involved. So, if you have a daughter or son or nephew or even a young neighbor kid that's really wanting to learn, bring them on in. That's what this hobby's about, is teaching other people to get excited about stuff and teach them to be hands-on. Some of you kids today, I'm not going to give them a soapbox, but they won't come out in front of the TV or off their phone to learn a skill. So after Paxton got the front core support cleaned off, went ahead and got all the spot welds ground down, thought it's time to open up the frame rail and let's see what we have. As you can see from the photo on the right, had a couple mice up in there making a nice nest for themselves. So what we ended up doing, cleaning all that nastiness out, cleaning up everything. It wasn't that bad. It had a little bit of rust, as you can see in there. I took it out, cleaned it all up with a biscuit wheel, and went ahead and shot some 615 self-etch primer inside the frame rail. And photo on the left, that's what the patch looks like. It fit really, really well. You can see down in this area here, the shape is a little different. It doesn't have that notch. You can put that notch in it after you get it welded in. Just grind it out and just repeat the same process for the other side. This didn't take too long. I think altogether I might have at the most 4 hours in this. Again, a lot of it is cleaning up all the rust that's in between the layers of metal. But definitely did not need a new frame rail. It's in really, really good shape now after getting that patch in. Like I said, we just did the same to the other side and called it a day. So at this point, we have the front frame rails behind the bumper mounts welded up. We have all the inner apron rust, including we did have a hole underneath the battery. We did the same thing on the battery. We didn't do an overlap with the new panel. We actually cut the new panel to fit exactly where the hole was. So that's how we did that repair. Same with the upper aprons. The awesome thing about the aprons, they really weren't that bad. And I still have the original VIN number that matched the title right there in the left apron. I believe there's also one in the right apron as well. Not that it's huge, but I think it's huge as far as the next person that's going to buy it to have, try to keep all the original VINs where they are. So with the front end pretty much secure, and I know everyone's wanting to see the fastback conversion part, but you have to have a good foundation to start with. So before we could get all of our sheet metal and start getting it hung, and at this point our sheet metal was on order. It took us a couple of months to get our sheet metal. So we had plenty of other things to do to the car before we got our fastback conversion. So from here it is time to move on to the floor. the torque boxes, and what kind of a mess we're going to find down there. Nasty, nasty, nasty. Cutting the old torque box out. As you can see, it was totally rusted out and gone. So we'll finish getting that cut out. So now we have the nastiness of the old floor support, or what I call frame rail extension that goes underneath the floor pan. We have it removed. Most of the stuff I use to cut all my parts off with, not really elaborate, just a good air hammer, cut off wheels, and just cutting and cutting it apart. Spot welds, I really don't worry about drilling out unless I need to save what's behind it. But a lot of times, if the metal is welded to the part you're going to save, if it's really rusted anyway, it can just be air hammered apart without messing up the heavier duty piece or the part that's in better shape underneath it. But you'll just have to see what works for you. Everyone's always like, how come you don't cut all the floor out if you're going to put a new floor in it? I do all that just for reference points. It kind of, I definitely, you don't have to, but I highly, highly, highly recommend using the factory measurements, like your frame measurements, to make sure you get everything exactly where it is. If you use the old parts as a reference, like for instance, when you're putting this new support in, and you get back in that area here, and I want to see how long that's going to be because I want it to hit the same area on the other pan. Well, these parts are not like Ford stamp parts. So if you have your measurement here or a measurement there, from side to side, they may be different. These two pieces came from two different vendors. There's a different length. I believe it was the passenger side was longer than the driver's side. Made no sense. And actually the locations of the holes were in two different locations. So all I like to do is, if I keep the original floor pans and other parts there, I have just a second reference point to make sure I'm in the right spot where it needs to be. And these supports are really kind of crucial because you may not realize it at the time, but your lip here on the very end of that support actually kind of welds on the other side where your seat platform comes through the floor. So it actually helps support your seat platform at the same time. So once I got the measurements right and the location was right, I went ahead and I don't have any good finish pictures, but I went ahead and plug welded. And I also went ahead and just solid stitch welded all the way around. I just wanted it connected to the frame rail. So that was the floor extensions. Now we're on to the torque boxes. Torque boxes, they're time consuming. I'll say that. The torque boxes, they're not hard, they're just time consuming. I thought I could put some one-piece torque boxes in. So I bought one-piece torque boxes. I tried my darndest to get them to fit in there the way they needed to, and I couldn't do it. So what I had to end up doing is taking them over to the drill press and drilling them apart anyway. So I kind of fiddled with that. And I thought, you know what? This Mustang just takes a new direction all the time, because you tell yourself, I'm not going to, take it all apart. I'll do what I can. And the dashes are welded in. I'm like, you know what? At this stage of the game, what's another part? Let's just go ahead and take the entire dash out. get it out of the way. As you can see, it makes it much easier to do everything to the inside. And because, I mean, after we were kind of looking, when, we were doing the torque boxes, we saw the firewall. It is really rusted out. So we pretty much determined we're going to put a one-piece firewall in it. Yeah, I know you could section pieces in. I know you can buy different sections of it and just seam it in. This car is going to be a high-end build. I'm not going to cut corners and seam unnecessary stuff, especially when you can buy all the parts to do it and to do it right. And it just makes a much cleaner job to do it as well. So to this point, we went ahead and just pulled the dash out. That did take a little bit. All the spot welds we had to drill out along the windshield frame. As you can see, we didn't want to go all the way through because we have to put this dash back in it. So we always try to do when I was trying to drill it out is not drill all the way through, just all the way through. Essentially, what your windshield frame is going to be, and not go through the dash part. You will go through some areas, but not all of them. So that was the next step we did. Got the dash out of the way, pulled it back, and surprisingly, we found that both sides of our cowl, because I was just waiting for the upper vent cowl area to just be rusted out and gone. Especially as rusty as this car is, they were not rusted at all. They're really, really good shape. So while we have the dash out, we're going to go ahead and paint up all up underneath the dash. Just go ahead and get it painted. That way it's protected. You wouldn't have to paint it. You could just 615 it. I try to soft etch everything I can, especially on the internal parts. Just so they have a good coating. I know a lot of people like the PR15, whatever that is, PRS. I don't even know what it is myself. And I don't know. I don't know much about it. I just know that this car never going to sit outside again. So it's going to be taken care of. And everything I'm doing to it, this car lasts another 50 years. So here we are. We have the dash removed. Now we can get to stuff. Now we can see some stuff. And as you can see, I got the outside of the torque box welded where it needed to be. So it's held in there. It's welded to the outside of the frame. Now I just need to put the inner together. Before I put the inner on top of it and weld it, a 615 both sides of the inside of that torque box. And before it hits the road, we will definitely have to get some undercoating. They make undercoating that comes in a wand. You can shove up in the hole and just undercoat the heck out of it. That's how I'm gonna deal with that. So torque boxes, I'll joke aside. I believe it took me about 8 hours a side. They aren't hard; they're just time consuming, and especially if you buy the one piece and you have to drill apart, because this particular metal is a lot heavier gauge. It's not just regular sheet metal. It's a structural part of your car. So by all means, make sure your welds are penetrating. Make sure you get really good welds, because this is definitely a structural part of the car. Probably the most structural. We went ahead and we did add the torque box to the left side as well. So I'll leave you with some photos of the finished product there. So right now to date, this section of the build, so we have roughly 40 hours in the front end, give or take. We have, 8 hours aside here. We did have the floor supports we did put in. Those weren't that big of a deal. Those didn't. I think we had them both done in an afternoon, so probably about 6 hours. It was not that big of a deal. So I'm gonna say roughly, 30 hours in this. Probably 40 counting the dash, removal of the dash. So, but that's where we are to this date. And when we come back, our next video, volume, I guess that will be 2 or 3, we'll cover the firewall and our floor pan. Thanks for coming out, and if you like it, subscribe, leave some comments. Like I said, we do have a Facebook page that is kind of dedicated to fastback conversions. And I mean, I'm just trying to educate people on what it takes to do the conversion. And also, I mean, we have a lot of good guys that sharing a lot of good information. You know, the way I'm doing things, you may not have that particular tool. How is somebody with, you know, not having that tool? How are they doing it? And, you know, you can find out on there. I mean, you can really find out on there because a lot of these guys, they come up with some pretty ingenious stuff. But the name of the Facebook is called, Facebook page, Project Steelhorse 67 Mustang coupe to fastback conversion. Come on that page, join it, post. You know, I really don't even care if you're doing a conversion. If you're just doing a coupe and you're thinking about doing a conversion, you know, share with the group what you're doing and what you're thinking about doing, and, you know, become interactive. I think we have, you know, over 200 members, but I don't know if they're just too shy to talk, or maybe what they do won't be good enough. I don't really know, but I love to get a lot of people just being interactive with it and talking and sharing their thoughts and ideas and how they dealt with this and what they ran into, and just kind of brainstorming and try to get everybody through their conversions. And so, you know, they, for one, have a good quality build, and, you know, two, just, you know, camaraderie, just having stuff in common. You know, you might live close to a guy that you can help him out if he's going to help you out. So thanks for coming out, and we'll see you on the next episode.